talking about here on my channel right now. It's all about Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively's.
When I first heard about how Taylor Swift's song ended up being a central piece for this movie, I was genuinely curious. How did she so graciously lend it, especially knowing how pivotal it would be for the entire storyline? Honestly, I had nothing to do with it. Everything about that decision, from the production to the music selection, came directly from Blake. From the very beginning, Blake wasn't just involved, she was at the center of all creative decisions. She understood every nuance, every emotional beat of the movie, and perhaps most importantly, she recognized the marketing potential that came with having a song like this featured. Ryan was involved, of course, but in terms of logistics and overall direction, it was Blake's vision that carried the project forward. She knew that pairing the movie's key moment with Taylor's song would strike a chord with audiences. I was just along for the ride, grateful that Taylor agreed, and amazed at Blake's ability to orchestrate such a critical piece of the production. Now, switching gears to something much more grounded in the legal world, welcome back to my Coravanta update. Yesterday, a ruling was issued by Judge Louis Lyman, not in Blake Lively's case, but in a separate high-profile dispute that involved Bravo, Andy Cohen, and a former Real Housewives of New York cast member, Liam Weaney. This case revolved around a motion to compel arbitration, and the judge ultimately ruled against Bravo, Cohen, and the wider media conglomerate that had been attempting to shift the case into private arbitration under their contractual terms. What makes this case particularly compelling is the context. It followed nearly 2 years of litigation, multiple rounds of motions to dismiss, amended complaints, and persistent efforts by Bravo to avoid public court proceedings. Weaney initially filed her complaint, faced a motion to dismiss, amended her complaint, and then encountered another dismissal motion. Each cycle saw parts of her claims dismissed while other claims survived. When the second amended complaint was filed, rather than responding directly, Bravo attempted to compel arbitration, only for the judge to reject their request. The ruling focused heavily on the principle of privacy, contractual obligations, and whether parties could effectively waive their rights to arbitration by first engaging in public litigation. Essentially, it addressed the question of whether you could participate in a public court process, benefiting from its procedural and discovery mechanisms, then attempt to retreat behind arbitration clauses to avoid transparency. This scenario is strikingly reminiscent of Blake Lively's own protective order battles. In her case, she filed a lawsuit and requested extremely robust protective orders, aiming to have everything viewed under attorney's eyes only. During the motion for summary judgment, she fought intensely to maintain this confidentiality, and even now, not all discovery has been made public because certain aspects of her case remain sealed. Judge Lyman's approach in the Weaney case demonstrates a consistent philosophy across high-profile litigation. In both instances, he scrutinizes attempts to manipulate court processes to protect sensitive materials or avoid public scrutiny. In the Weaney case, he highlighted that Bravo and Cohen had waited until after multiple dismissal motions to invoke arbitration, essentially treating it as a fallback option rather than a genuine contractual right. From the court's perspective, this tactic is unacceptable. They had engaged with the public court system, benefited from the motion processes, and only then attempted to shift to a private forum, a maneuver Judge Lyman explicitly rejected. The principle here is straightforward: you cannot simultaneously enjoy the advantages of public litigation and then claim the protections of private arbitration once discovery has revealed information. Judge Lyman's ruling also illustrates the court's careful balance between First Amendment claims and procedural fairness. Bravo attempted to invoke First Amendment rights to justify dismissals, arguing that certain claims related to reality television production were insubstantial or frivolous. However, the court noted that they had ample opportunity to pursue arbitration at the outset but chose not to. By waiting, they effectively waived their right to arbitrate, a reasoning directly applicable to similar disputes involving high-profile plaintiffs like Blake. In Blake's case, the issue wasn't arbitration, but privacy and confidentiality during discovery. Judge Lyman repeatedly reinforced that coming to court for public adjudication cannot then be paired with demands to shield information entirely from the public eye. The judge's commentary on this topic is particularly enlightening. He pointed out that any generic request for sealing or protective orders, without a weighty and specific justification, would not suffice. Courts operate under a presumption of public access, particularly during summary judgment or trial. This principle ensures that litigation involving public figures, especially those with high media visibility, is conducted transparently and fairly. If parties wish to maintain certain sensitive information under seal, they must demonstrate clear, case-specific reasons that outweigh the public's right to access. In practical terms, this means that telephone numbers, email addresses, or other personal identifiers may be sealed routinely, but broader categories of information require careful justification and scrutiny. Returning to the Coravanta update, the procedural timeline is also important. Judge Lyman recently set deadlines for sealing motions and pre-trial filings, emphasizing efficiency and public interest. Parties were directed to meet and confer to streamline which documents could remain sealed. Audio and video evidence, for instance, cannot be filed electronically under the court's ECF system and must be provided physically to the clerk. Such procedural guidance ensures both transparency and order in high-profile cases where the sheer volume of materials can otherwise overwhelm the court and the parties. This meticulous approach mirrors his handling of Blake Lively's protective order requests, demonstrating consistency in his judicial philosophy regardless of celebrity status. In essence, Judge Lyman treats every high-profile case with the same principles: fairness, public access, and procedural integrity. Whether the plaintiff seeks protection or the defendant seeks to avoid exposure, the court's expectations remain constant. Parties cannot manipulate timing or selectively invoke legal mechanisms to achieve strategic advantage. This philosophy is evident in the way he addressed Bravo and Cohen's attempts to compel arbitration and in his repeated clarifications regarding Blake's protective order requests. In both contexts, he prioritizes the public's interest in access while balancing legitimate claims for confidentiality. For Blake, this ruling is a reminder that no matter how high-profile or complex a case becomes, legal transparency cannot be sidestepped. The court recognizes the sensitivity of the materials involved, be it private communications, business records, or personal documents, but maintains that once litigation enters the public sphere, confidentiality claims are constrained by the need for procedural fairness. This approach aligns with prior commentary in the Mwini case, where Judge Lyman expressed impatience with parties attempting to manipulate legal processes to shield information. In both instances, his goal is clear: if you come to court seeking adjudication or protection, you must play by the court's rules and accept the public accountability that comes with it. The parallels between these cases are striking, particularly in terms of litigation strategy and the use of public court resources. Bravo attempted to leverage the procedural mechanisms to its advantage, first by filing dismissal motions and later by seeking arbitration after losing key arguments. Blake's team similarly pursued protective orders but faced limits on the extent to which they could shield evidence. Judge Lyman's rulings emphasize that such tactics, if perceived as manipulative or obstructive, are unlikely to succeed. Whether it involves celebrity plaintiffs or large media conglomerates, the court's position is consistent: public litigation must remain transparent, and attempts to exploit procedural levers to avoid disclosure will be scrutinized and often denied. Another significant aspect of Judge Lyman's rulings involves the management of pre-trial deadlines and extensions. In the most recent updates, parties requested brief extensions to allow for pre-trial submissions. The court granted a one-week extension, signaling that while some flexibility is provided, it is limited and procedural guidance remains structured. This extension is not indicative of favoritism toward any party; rather, it reflects the court's commitment to orderly and timely proceedings. Parties involved, including Blake's team, consented to the extension, indicating strategic alignment with the court's timeline while also preparing for anticipated rulings on dispositive motions. The procedural nuances, from protective orders to summary judgment motions and pre-trial extensions, underscore the complexity of high-profile litigation. Blake's legal team, like those representing other celebrity or high-net-worth clients, must navigate not only the substantive law but also the court's procedural expectations. In this context, Judge Lyman's consistent approach, treating all parties equally, emphasizing transparency, and enforcing procedural rigor, serves as a guidepost for managing expectations and litigation strategy. The court's emphasis on public access, particularly in discovery, ensures that cases involving high-profile individuals maintain integrity while balancing legitimate confidentiality concerns. In sum, the rulings in both the Mwini case and Blake Lively's protective order matters reflect a broader judicial philosophy: high-profile disputes are inherently public, and parties must engage with the court in good faith, without attempts to gain procedural mechanisms. Arbitration cannot be used as a fallback after public litigation has commenced, and protective orders must be specific and justified rather than broad or generic. Judge Lyman's decisions consistently underscore these principles, providing a predictable framework for managing complex cases involving celebrities, media companies, and high-stakes legal claims. For those following the Coravanta updates, these rulings offer clarity on how the court approaches transparency, privacy, and procedural fairness in high-profile litigation. Picking up where we left off, let's dive deeper into Blake Lively's current situation and the broader implications of these rulings. One of the most critical aspects of her case is how her legal team has managed the protective orders and discovery process. The court has consistently emphasized that once a case reaches the stage of summary judgment or dispositive motions, the expectation of privacy diminishes. This principle means that while Blake can maintain confidentiality during the early stages of discovery, once the evidence becomes central to deciding the case, public access prevails. The court is clear: you cannot come to a federal court seeking public remedies and simultaneously demand absolute secrecy. This philosophy aligns closely with Judge Lyman's approach in other high-profile cases, such as Liam Sweeney's lawsuit against Bravo and Andy Cohen, and demonstrates that he applies consistent reasoning regardless of celebrity status. Yesterday, there was a procedural development that's worth noting. Wayfair, representing one of the parties, sent a formal request to the court asking for a brief adjournment of the deadlines for pretrial submissions. They emphasized that all parties were committed to moving the case forward but believed they could benefit from the court's guidance and the anticipated rulings on pending dispositive motions. Essentially, the parties were requesting a short extension to adjust their filings in light of upcoming rulings. Judge Lyman granted a 1-week extension, which aligns with his reputation for careful, methodical management of high-stakes cases. This extension, while minor, signals that the court is likely nearing a substantive ruling on the motions for summary judgment, and all parties must be ready to respond promptly once it is issued. The timeline and strategy of Blake's legal team are particularly fascinating. For many high-profile clients, managing the timing of filings, protective orders, and public disclosures is crucial. Blake's team, for instance, consented to the 1-week extension rather than filing a formal request themselves. This approach may reflect strategic planning. They are allowing other parties to navigate procedural obligations while keeping their own filings minimal and efficient. In high-stakes litigation like this, controlling procedural posture can be just as important as substantive arguments, particularly when dealing with public scrutiny and media attention. An additional factor influencing this case is the nature of Blake's legal representation. Her team includes firms like Marnat Phelps and Phillips, known for handling high-profile, high-stakes cases on contingency. This means they sometimes take on cases without immediate payment, instead receiving a percentage of any eventual recovery. This approach allows wealthy clients to manage massive litigation without committing extensive liquidity upfront. For example, Marnat Phelps and Phillips has represented clients in cases against Boeing, in disputes involving the Franklin Mint, and in commercial litigation where recoveries reached hundreds of millions of dollars. Contingency arrangements allow the firm to take calculated risks, leveraging expertise in complex cases while aligning their financial incentives with the client's success. In Blake's situation, this setup enables her team to pursue aggressive litigation strategies, pushing for sanctions, protective orders, and other procedural advantages, without bearing the full financial burden. It's also worth noting that while contingency arrangements provide flexibility, they carry risks. Past cases have shown that even firms like Marnat Phelps and Phillips face challenges when their strategic bets do not pay off. However, in high-profile celebrity litigation, these firms are often willing to absorb risk because the potential rewards, both financial and reputational, are substantial. This approach underscores why Blake's team can push boundaries in their legal arguments, challenging protective orders, and vigorously defending against motions while remaining financially supported by contingency arrangements. Now, turning back to Judge Lyman, his consistent approach to these disputes is illuminating. He is not pro-Lively or biased in favor of celebrities. Rather, he evaluates procedural and substantive claims through the lens of fairness, public interest, and judicial economy. His rulings in the Sweeney case and Blake's ongoing disputes reflect the same principles. Public access is paramount, protective orders must be specific and justified, and arbitration or confidentiality cannot be manipulated as a second chance after engaging in public litigation. This consistency demonstrates that the judge's decisions are principled rather than personal. For high-profile clients like Blake, this means that no matter how strategic their legal maneuvers, they must adhere strictly to court expectations. Another key element of Blake's case involves the anticipated rulings on summary judgment. Based on court behavior, procedural extensions, and prior rulings, it is likely that a ruling will be issued imminently. The court has allowed a one-week extension for pretrial submissions, which indicates that Judge Lyman is managing the schedule tightly and expects all parties to be prepared. Once the ruling is issued, Blake's team will have roughly 3 weeks to respond, prepare filings, and adjust their strategy based on the court's guidance. This timeline provides some operational clarity, but also underscores the intense pressure that comes with high-profile litigation. Every procedural move, every extension request, and every filing can influence the ultimate outcome. In considering the broader context, it is important to recognize how the court handles sensitive materials. Judge Lyman has repeatedly emphasized that while some information may remain sealed temporarily, particularly during discovery, the default presumption favors public access. This philosophy applies across the board, whether the information pertains to celebrity communications, business documents, or other sensitive evidence. Parties may submit sealing motions, but they must be precise and well justified. Generic claims of privacy or confidentiality are insufficient. The court's focus on specificity ensures transparency while protecting truly sensitive information, maintaining fairness in cases that attract significant public attention. Blake's legal team has also been strategic in handling filings and procedural communications. For instance, they consented to Wayfair's request for an extension rather than filing independently, likely signaling confidence in their position and a desire to manage the court's perception. This kind of procedural discipline is common in high-profile litigation, where every motion, consent, and communication can shape how the judge interprets the case. By aligning procedural tactics with substantive strategy, Blake's team maximizes their ability to protect sensitive information while advancing their legal arguments. At the same time, Judge Lyman's past rulings suggest that he does not reward attempts to manipulate the system. Whether in the Mwini case, Blake Lively's protective order disputes, or other celebrity-related litigation, he has shown impatience with parties who attempt to gain procedural rules to gain an advantage. Arbitration cannot be invoked after engaging in public court proceedings, protective orders must be justified with specific reasons, and delays in filing or disclosure cannot be used to evade public scrutiny. This consistent philosophy reinforces the importance of disciplined, principled legal strategy for high-profile litigants. In addition to procedural considerations, the court also evaluates the practical implications of discovery and confidentiality. In Blake's case, discovery involves sensitive text messages, business records, and communications with other high-profile figures. Judge Lyman has been careful to allow limited confidentiality where justified, but he has also made clear that once evidence becomes central to the case's resolution, it will enter the public domain. This balance reflects a commitment to transparency, fairness, and judicial economy, ensuring that all parties are held accountable while protecting genuinely sensitive information. The timing of the anticipated ruling also highlights the court's deliberate approach. Despite delays between filings, oral arguments, and summary judgment motions, the court operates methodically to ensure that each decision is well considered. For high-profile cases involving celebrities, media conglomerates, or high-net-worth individuals, this approach prevents rushed rulings that could have significant consequences. While parties may experience frustration with procedural timelines, the methodical pace ultimately serves the integrity of the legal process. Another factor worth considering is the interplay between litigation strategy and public perception. In high-profile cases like Blake Lively's, every filing, motion, and ruling is scrutinized by the media and public. Legal teams must therefore navigate not only the court's expectations but also the broader narrative surrounding the case. Strategic decisions, such as consenting to procedural extensions or selectively filing motions, can influence how the public perceives the litigation. For Blake, maintaining a careful balance between aggressive legal strategy and public messaging is essential, particularly given the ongoing attention from both entertainment media and legal observers. The contingency nature of Blake's legal team's work also plays a role in shaping strategy. Firms like Marnat Phelps and Phillips are willing to take calculated risks, leveraging their expertise in high-stakes cases to achieve favorable outcomes while aligning financial incentives with client success. This allows Blake's team to pursue aggressive procedural tactics, challenge protective orders, and push for strategic advantages without bearing the full financial burden. In turn, this approach reinforces the intensity and complexity of the litigation, as each procedural maneuver is supported by both legal acumen and strategic foresight. Ultimately, the convergence of legal principles, procedural strategy, and public scrutiny defines the trajectory of Blake Lively's case. Judge Lyman's consistent rulings emphasize fairness, transparency, and accountability, while Blake's legal team navigates the complexities of high-profile litigation with strategic precision. The anticipated ruling on summary judgment, coupled with the ongoing management of protective orders and pre-trial deadlines, sets the stage for a critical moment in the litigation. The court's emphasis on procedural integrity, coupled with the strategic considerations of contingency-based legal teams, ensures that the case will proceed in a manner consistent with both legal norms and public expectations. In conclusion, the unfolding developments in Blake Lively's case, as well as comparable high-profile litigation such as the Mwini dispute, highlight the delicate balance between confidentiality, public access, and procedural fairness. Judge Lyman's consistent approach, emphasizing transparency and disciplined legal conduct, underscores the importance of adhering to court expectations while navigating complex litigation. Blake's legal team, leveraging contingency arrangements and strategic filings, is navigating these challenges with precision, ensuring that procedural and substantive goals are aligned. As the court prepares to issue anticipated rulings, the intersection of celebrity, legal strategy, and public accountability will continue to shape the trajectory of this high-profile dispute, providing a compelling lens through which to observe the dynamics of modern litigation in the context of entertainment and media. With all these developments, it's clear that Blake's case is far from ordinary. The combination of high-profile parties, strategic legal maneuvers, and public scrutiny creates a complex environment where every decision matters. From protective orders to procedural extensions, contingency arrangements, and anticipated summary judgment rulings, each element contributes to a larger picture of high-stakes celebrity litigation. Judge Lyman's consistent principles, emphasizing fairness, transparency, and procedural integrity, serve as a guidepost for all parties involved, ensuring that the case proceeds in an orderly, principled, and accountable manner. So that brings us to where we are now, anticipating a ruling in the near term, with procedural extensions managed carefully, discovery underway, and the interplay of public and legal strategy continuing to define the pace and direction of the litigation. The next few weeks will be critical, and all eyes will remain on the court as the parties prepare to respond to whatever guidance and decisions emerge. For those following Corrivanter updates, these developments provide a vivid illustration of how high-profile cases are managed, the importance of judicial consistency, and the delicate balance between confidentiality, strategy, and transparency in the modern legal landscape. And that's where we leave part 2 for now. The case continues to unfold, with high stakes, meticulous legal strategy, and public scrutiny shaping every step. As Judge Lyman's rulings continue to arrive, the implications for Blake Lively, her team, and the broader landscape of celebrity litigation will become increasingly clear. It's a case that reminds us how complex, high-profile litigation operates in real time, balancing law, strategy, and public accountability in ways that are as fascinating as they are instructive.